It was just another Tuesday morning on the downtown 6 train. The kind of morning where the subway car feels like a sardine tin, and everyone's avoiding eye contact while simultaneously trying to maintain their personal space, an impossible task during rush hour in the city. That's where our story begins, with Alex, a 26-year-old graphic designer who had moved to the city just 3 months ago from a small town in Ohio. He was still getting used to the rhythm of urban life, the constant motion, the anonymity, and yes, the crowded subway commutes that made him question his life choices at least twice a week. Alex stood near the doors, one hand gripping the overhead bar, the other clutching his phone as he scrolled through emails. He was wearing his favorite navy blue jacket, the one with too many pockets that his mother had insisted he buy, because you never know what you might need to carry. Ironic, considering what was about to happen. His sandy brown hair fell slightly over his eyes as the train jostled, and he kept pushing it back, making a mental note to schedule a haircut at that place his coworker had recommended. That's when he noticed Jamie for the first time. Standing just a few feet away was a man about his age, maybe a year or two older, with dark curly hair and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly where you're going and how to get there. Jamie was a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens, now living in a shoebox apartment in Manhattan that he somehow afforded on a museum curator's salary. He noticed Alex, too. Their eyes met briefly in that way that happens on the subway, where you immediately look away pretending the connection never happened, but secretly hope it might happen again. The train lurched to a stop at Union Square, and the usual chaos ensued. People pushing to get out, people pushing to get in, everyone somehow managing to exchange places in a choreographed dance that only New Yorkers seem to know the steps to. Alex was jostled by a businessman with a briefcase, nearly losing his balance. And that's when Jamie instinctively reached out, steadying him with a hand on his arm. "You good?" Jamie asked, his voice warm with genuine concern. "Yeah, thanks," Alex replied, feeling a flutter of something in his chest that wasn't just the usual anxiety of subway travel. Still getting used to the whole subway surfing thing. "Let me guess, not from around here." Jamie smiled, the kind of smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Is it that obvious?" Alex laughed. "I might as well have a sign that says tourist on my forehead." "Nah, you're past tourist. I'd say, recent transplant? Still got that wide-eyed look, but you're wearing New York-appropriate black, so you're learning." The train continued its journey downtown, and somehow, against all odds in a city where conversations with strangers are rare, they kept talking. Jamie mentioned he worked at the Museum of Modern Art, and Alex confessed his secret dream of having his designs displayed in a gallery someday. The train was emptying out as they got further downtown, and they found themselves sitting side by side, the conversation flowing easily. When the announcement came for Chambers Street, Alex jumped up. "This is me. It was nice talking to you." Jamie nodded, looking slightly disappointed. "Yeah, you too. Maybe I'll see you around." Alex hurried off the train, weaving through the crowd toward the exit. It wasn't until he reached the turnstiles that he patted his pocket and felt the blood drain from his face. His wallet. It was gone. Everything was in there. His ID, credit cards, the cash he'd just withdrawn, and worst of all, the small photo of his grandmother that he always carried for good luck. He frantically patted all his pockets, knowing it was futile. The wallet was gone, probably dropped on the subway floor or, worse, picked from his pocket in the crowd. He turned around, hoping irrationally that he could catch the same train, but of course, it was long gone. Panic rose in his throat. He was in a city where he barely knew anyone, without money or ID. That's when he heard a voice calling his name. "Alex. Hey, Alex." Running down the platform was Jamie, slightly out of breath, holding something in his hand. Alex's wallet. "You dropped this," Jamie said, holding it out. "I noticed it on the floor right after you left. Figured it might be important." The relief that flooded through Alex was overwhelming. "You have no idea. Thank you so much. You literally just saved my day, maybe my whole week." Jamie shrugged, looking pleased. "No problem. I know what it's like to lose something important in this city. It can feel like finding a needle in a haystack." Alex opened the wallet, checking that everything was still there. It was. He looked up at Jamie, gratitude written all over his face. "Let me buy you a coffee or something. To say thanks." "Actually," Jamie said, checking his watch, "I was supposed to be meeting some friends, but they just texted that they're running late. So yeah, coffee sounds good." What started as a simple coffee to say thank you turned into something neither of them expected. They found a small cafe near the subway station, one of those places with mismatched furniture and baristas who took their craft very seriously. As they settled into a corner table with their drinks, an Americano for Jamie and a chai latte for Alex, the conversation picked up right where it had left off on the train. "So you're really carrying a picture of your grandmother in your wallet?" Jamie asked, a hint of teasing in his voice, but his eyes were kind. Alex felt his cheeks warm slightly. "Yeah, I know it's kind of old-fashioned. She raised me after my parents split up. She was the one who encouraged me to move here, to pursue design. She passed away last year, but I like having her with me, especially in a city where I don't know many people yet." Jamie's expression softened. "I think that's really sweet, actually. This city can be lonely sometimes, even when you're surrounded by millions of people. Having something to ground you, to remind you of where you came from, that's important." As they talked, Alex learned that Jamie had grown up with two moms in a time when that wasn't as accepted as it is now. "They taught me resilience," Jamie explained, stirring his coffee absently. "How to be proud of who you are, even when the world isn't always kind about it." "That must have been tough sometimes," Alex said, thinking about his own coming-out experience in small-town Ohio, which had been a mixed bag of support and silence. "It had its moments," Jamie admitted, "but it also gave me a strong sense of community early on. Speaking of which," he glanced at his phone, "my friends are still running behind. I was supposed to meet them at this vintage record store in the East Village. The owner's a friend of mine, and he sets aside special vinyl for me sometimes. Would you want to come along? Unless you have somewhere to be." Alex thought about his empty apartment, the freelance project that wasn't due until next week, and the leftovers in his fridge that constituted his dinner plans. "I'd love to," he said, surprising himself with his eagerness. The record store was exactly the kind of place Alex had imagined when dreaming of New York from his bedroom in Ohio. Walls lined with vinyl, the smell of incense in the air, and people who looked like they had stepped out of a cooler decade browsing through the bins. Jamie was greeted warmly by the owner, a man with gray dreadlocks and glasses who introduced himself as Ray. "This is Alex," Jamie said. "He's new to the city, and I'm showing him the real New York, not that Times Square tourist trap nonsense." Ray laughed. "Well, you've come to the right place. Any friend of Jamie's is welcome here. Feel free to look around. We just got some new jazz records in that I think you might appreciate, Jamie." As they browsed through the store, Alex found himself drawn to a section of vintage movie soundtracks. "I love film scores," he admitted to Jamie. "They tell so much of the story without any words." "I didn't peg you for a film score guy," Jamie said, looking impressed. "Let me guess, John Williams? Hans Zimmer? They're classics for a reason," Alex defended with a laugh. "But I also love Johann Johansson and Michael Levi. There's something about the way they create atmosphere that just, I don't know, it speaks to me." Jamie's eyes lit up. "Have you been to the Film Forum yet? They do these special screenings sometimes where they play movies with live orchestral accompaniment. It's incredible." "No, I haven't even heard of it," Alex admitted. "Well, that settles it. We need to add that to your New York education." Jamie said it so casually, as if they had already established that there would be more days like this, more adventures together. After the record store, where Jamie found the jazz album he was looking for and Alex splurged on a vinyl of the Moonlight soundtrack, they decided to continue exploring. Jamie's friends had texted again, saying they were caught up in some art installation opening and would have to reschedule. "Their loss is my gain," Jamie said with a wink that made Alex's heart do a little flip. "Now I get to show you my favorite hidden spots in the city." They wandered through the East Village, Jamie pointing out restaurants with the best late-night food, bookstores with reading nooks where you could spend hours undisturbed, and street art that changed regularly but always told a story about the neighborhood. They stopped at a tiny dumpling place where the menu was entirely in Chinese, but Jamie knew exactly what to order. "Trust me," he said, as the server brought out steaming bamboo baskets. "These are the best soup dumplings in the city, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise." Alex had to admit they were incredible, delicate dough filled with rich broth and tender pork that exploded with flavor in his mouth. They sat at a small table by the window, watching the parade of city life pass by, and Alex felt a contentment he hadn't experienced since moving to New York. "Can I ask you something?" he said, as they shared a plate of scallion pancakes. "Why did you really miss your friends today? I mean, You could have just returned my wallet and gone on with your day. Jamie considered the question, taking a sip of his tea before answering. Honestly, I was intrigued. We had this moment on the subway, and then you were gone, and I thought that was it. Just another New York almost connection. But then I saw your wallet, and it felt like, I don't know, a second chance. Like the universe was saying, here you go, don't mess it up this time. He laughed self-consciously. That sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? No, Alex said softly. It doesn't sound cheesy at all. As the afternoon stretched into evening, they found themselves walking along the High Line, the elevated park built on an old railway track. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city, and the air had that perfect early fall crispness that made everything feel possible. So what's the hardest part? Jamie asked, as they leaned against the railing, looking out at the Hudson River. About moving here, I mean. Alex thought about it. The loneliness, I guess. Back home, I knew everyone. Here, I can go days without having a real conversation with anyone outside of work. It's like being invisible sometimes. Jamie nodded. The city has a way of making you feel both incredibly significant and completely insignificant at the same time. Like, you're part of this amazing, vibrant place, but also just one tiny piece of it. Exactly. Alex agreed, relieved that someone understood. But today has been different. Today I feel like I belong here. Their eyes met, and there was a moment of perfect understanding between them. Jamie's hand moved slightly closer to Alex's on the railing, their fingers almost touching. There's a place I want to show you, Jamie said suddenly. It's my favorite spot in the city at night. Are you up for one more adventure? The place turned out to be a rooftop bar in Brooklyn, accessible only by a nondescript door and a freight elevator that seemed like it might break down at any moment. But when they stepped out onto the roof, Alex understood why Jamie had brought him here. The view of the Manhattan skyline was breathtaking, a glittering panorama of lights that made the city look like something out of a dream. Worth the sketchy elevator ride? Jamie asked, watching Alex's face. Absolutely. Alex breathed, unable to take his eyes off the view. It's beautiful. They found a quiet corner with a small table and ordered drinks, a local IPA for Jamie and a gin and tonic for Alex. The night air was cool, but not uncomfortable, and fairy lights strung across the rooftop cast a warm glow over everything. So, Jamie said, taking a sip of his beer, tell me something you haven't told anyone else in New York yet. Alex considered the question. There was something intimate about sitting here, above the city, with someone who had started the day as a stranger, but now felt like so much more. I'm terrified I made a mistake, he admitted. Moving here. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and think, what am I doing? I don't belong here. Jamie didn't rush to reassure him or dismiss his fears. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully. I think everyone who moves here feels that way at some point. The city tests you. It pushes you to your limits and makes you question everything. But if you can make it through that initial period of doubt, it rewards you in ways you can't even imagine. Is that what happened with you? I was born here, remember? But I had my own version of that doubt. After college, I had this opportunity to move to Chicago for a job that, on paper, was perfect. Better pay, lower cost of living, a chance to start fresh somewhere new. I was packed and ready to go, and then the night before I was supposed to leave, I went for a walk in my neighborhood. It was a summer night, and people were out on their stoops. Music was playing from open windows. Kids were still running around even though it was late. And I couldn't leave. This city gets under your skin. It becomes part of you. Alex thought about his small apartment, the bodega on the corner where the owner had started remembering his coffee order, the park bench where he liked to sketch on his lunch breaks. Small anchors, but they were starting to hold him in place. I think I understand, he said. It's happening to me too, little by little. As the night deepened, they talked about everything and nothing, favorite books and movies, childhood memories, dreams for the future. Alex learned that Jamie volunteered at an LGBTQ+ youth center on weekends, that he was terrified of heights despite bringing Alex to a rooftop, and that he could recite entire scenes from When Harry Met Sally from memory. It's the perfect New York movie. Jamie insisted, after demonstrating his Meg Ryan impression, which was terrible in the most endearing way possible. In turn, Alex shared his collection of vintage cameras that he'd started in high school, his secret talent for baking pies, his grandmother's recipes, and his dream of one day designing album covers for musicians he admired. You should show me your work sometime, Jamie said. I know some people in the music industry. Not to be that guy who says, I know people, but I know people. Alex laughed. I might take you up on that. They were among the last to leave the rooftop bar, reluctant to end the night. Standing on the sidewalk outside, there was a moment of awkwardness, the kind that comes when you've shared an unexpected connection and aren't sure what happens next. So, Jamie said, hands in his pockets. This has been. Yeah, Alex agreed. It really has. Can I see your phone for a sec? Jamie asked. Alex handed it over, watching as Jamie typed something in. There, he said, returning the phone. Now you have my number. You know, in case you lose your wallet again. Alex smiled. Is that the only reason I should use it? Well, Jamie said, stepping slightly closer. I was thinking maybe you'd want to see that film forum I mentioned. Or try the best pizza in Brooklyn. Or just, continue this conversation sometime. I'd like that, Alex said softly. All of those things. There was a pause, the air between them charged with possibility. Then Jamie leaned in and kissed him, a gentle, questioning kiss that Alex answered by moving closer, his hand finding Jamie's jacket to pull him in. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Jamie rested his forehead against Alex's. I'm really glad you lost your wallet today, he whispered. Alex laughed. Me too. Best thing I ever lost. They parted ways at the subway station, Jamie heading back to Manhattan, Alex to his apartment in Brooklyn. As he rode the train home, Alex thought about the strange, wonderful day that had unfolded from what should have been a disaster. He thought about Jamie's smile, the way he told stories with his whole body, how he seemed to know exactly what Alex needed before he knew it himself. The city lights flashed by outside the subway windows, and for the first time since moving to New York, Alex felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He reached into his pocket, touching his wallet, making sure it was still there. Inside was his grandmother's photo, and now, written on a napkin from the rooftop bar, Jamie's phone number. Two talismans guiding him through this new chapter of his life. As he walked the final blocks to his apartment, Alex looked up at the night sky, barely visible through the city's glow, and made a silent promise to himself to embrace the unexpected, to be open to the adventures that might be waiting around any corner, and to remember that sometimes, losing something can lead you to find exactly what you need. The next morning, Alex woke up to a text from Jamie. Good morning. Still have your wallet? If yes, want to get breakfast? If no, I'm willing to help you search the city again. Either way, I just want to see you. Alex smiled at his phone, already typing his reply. Wallet intact. Breakfast sounds perfect. And just so you know, I want to see you too. Outside his window, the city was waking up, another day beginning. But for Alex, it felt like something much bigger was just getting started. Total _char_count. 18,427.